of army staff on the other day mentioned. So, sir, is it going to continue the same way against Pakistan? These spoilers, because I remember even today when I read this story about a bomb attack on the vice president of Afghanistan, I immediately knew that this man was not in good books of Pakistan and Pakistan is going to be blamed for it. But we all do understand that this has come from the other side of the border. Absolutely. The Indians have done it because they have done it on so many occasions whenever the negotiations were this close for a final settlement. Your take, sir?
Well, I think Afghanistan, we all are wishing a peaceful and a prosperous Afghanistan. I mean, people in Pakistan. Pakistan has made it very clear to the Americans and the Afghan government and Taliban as well that this land, the Afghan land, should not be used against Pakistan. That's one of the basic focus of Pakistan, that the Afghan soil should not be used against Pakistan. Pakistan has suffered a lot. You know, so many abominable and the terrorist attacks were carried out from Afghanistan side on the soil of Pakistan. The APS school attack, the most devastating and the most regretful. So these kind of things should not happen again in Pakistan. Pakistan's interest is that Afghanistan should remain stable, peaceful and prosperous so that we do not suffer. We have suffered a lot because of the Afghan situation for the last 40 years. So we want this issue to be resolved peacefully, but obviously the stakeholders or the negotiators who have to come to an agreement, they have a lot of differences of opinion and their interests are vying with each other. They have conflicting interests. I mean, the Taliban, the Afghan government particularly, and the Indians, because the Indians want to keep this pot boiling. The Afghan,
that suits them.
That suits them. So these are so many. These are the challenges which Pakistan is facing. These are the challenges which the people in Afghanistan are facing, and the Americans too are aware of what's happening in Afghanistan. Because if the Americans leave, I mean, finally, then Afghanistan can plunge into chaos again, as it happened,
civil war, yes,
as it happened in 90s. 89, 90, when the Soviet forces left Afghanistan, Afghanistan was pushed into a civil war, a strife, and that civil war was very, very costly for Pakistan as well, for about 10 years,
correct,
till 9/11 happened. So I think Pakistan's foremost effort is that a settlement should be reached as quickly as possible, because it is in the interest of the Afghan people. It is in the interest of Pakistan. It is in the interest of the region. Obviously, the Indians and some other people would not like it to happen, but I think our interest lies in the fact that this Afghan crisis of 40 years duration must come to an end through a negotiated settlement.
All right. Now, so when we talk about the spoilers, we do understand the kind of groups that are being supported by the Indians to destabilize Pakistan and even Afghanistan. You talk about Jamaat-ul-Ahrar, you talk about Hizbul-Ahrar, you talk about Tehreek-e-Taliban Pakistan, you talk about Daesh or IS, and so many other factions of these splinter groups from the Taliban. What sort of a role do you see, sir, of these groups? Because unfortunately, they would really create a problem, not only for Pakistan but for the entire region, sir, and their future.
Yes, of course. This is something that even Taliban are also fighting them, and they are those who are hardliners, who are militant. They are joining the IS. Even from Taliban, they have some moved across. So this is something which will have to be tackled with both by Pakistan cooperation with the Taliban as well as the American. They will have some presence there also. But the important thing that I want to add is that, as mentioned earlier, that we have differences and accusations about what is happening. And although we have a border, we have common history, we have culture, we have demographic links. But the past several years, we've seen that at the time of the Soviets, we have ideological differences from there. Then we of course had the the Taliban coming into power. We were amongst the 3 countries to have recognized the Taliban. And now, of course, a new change has come about. But importantly, what has happened is the Pakistan and Afghanistan decision to have the Pakistan-Afghanistan action plan for stability and cooperation. This is very important. We've had a meeting back in the 18th. More recently, there have been 2 sessions in that. And this encompasses some very important sectors. For example, political and diplomatic, military cooperation, intelligence sharing, economic cooperation, and of course the Afghan refugee issues and so on. So this is now they have decided to increase the number of high-level changes and to enlarge the scope of cooperation in this. Now this will go a long way in building trust between
and that is going to take a lot of time and a lot of, I think, visible acts should be there.
Yes.
You see, many people think that since these splinter groups, Jamaat-ul-Ahrar and everybody has joined TTP.
And obviously these are all supported by the Indians, financed by them.
Let me just tell you that TTP has been an asset with the Afghan government and the CIA as a handle to trouble Pakistan. I do not have substantial evidence where the Taliban of Afghanistan have cooperated with TTP in a manner to harm Pakistan as compared to what the RAW has handled Sufi Muhammad's son, who was killed there, who fled from Swat and all that, and with 1,500 fighters. The Afghan NSD and the RAW handled them, supported by some other intelligence agencies that they were in Afghanistan and the Kabul government. So this insinuation that if the Taliban, are successful in Afghanistan...
Sir, is Afghanistan still the base for the international intelligence agencies to operate out there, sir?
Unfortunately, it has been. That is what the Afghans must understand. And if they do
you believe
understand...
that could be another big hindrance in
Pakistan
this
has come
process?
a long way. You see, the role of Pakistan is it's different and it's very important now as compared to 3 decades back. Now Pakistan is telling the Afghans that you decide, we can facilitate you, but we cannot tell you what to do. And you take the fate and your future in your own hand. You negotiate. We will facilitate you, but it is for you to think what you do in Afghanistan. And I am sure, absolutely sure, that the government of Pakistan and the institutions of Pakistan can prevail upon the Taliban in Afghanistan that there should be no mischief from their soil. So far as the TTP is concerned, I can assure you that if Taliban are in power in Afghanistan, TTP will not be able to trouble Pakistan as compared to what it has been doing under the American influence and the Indian influence.
Well, let's see, sir.
Coming days, the coming months, and thing to understand that all these people who had fled there and they were, attacking our post across the border from Afghanistan below Chitral and these Dir Bajod agency in front of Patrika and all that. In Kunard sector north of Jalalabad, they were held by the Afghan security forces, not by the Taliban. So it is an important thing to understand that they have been playing and they have been getting money from the RAW, fooling people of Pakistan that it is for Islam that they are doing. Yeah, they should be ashamed of themselves what are they doing, So it is not that. My estimate is that the situation in Afghanistan is comfortable for Pakistan, all right. We would want that the peace should prevail. We would want that there should be a workable setup that will come out of the Doha negotiations. But I fear 2 things. Now, number 1, it is going to be delayed. Number 2, if the Taliban do agree on a certain settlement, once the foreign forces leave and the field is open,
that is going to be the real time.
It is going to be a different
That is going to be very challenging also.
and they will carry the day.
Well, British Sahab, that is the, in fact, real threat, that post the American withdrawal, what exactly will it look like? Because that is the time when really everybody needs to be on the same page if they want to bring in peace, or there is going to be a civil war-like situation.
On that score, across the Salang tunnel towards Mazar-e Sharif and towards the Turgundi border and all those areas of War Khan corridor and all, leaving that aside, Pakistan border starting from in front of Yob and all that right down to Nokundi and all, it is going to be
very interesting times ahead, as they say. British Sahab, thank you very much. That was a pleasure. Javed Sahab, thank you so much for your presence. Well, one peace process is not going to be that simple. There are a lot of spoilers, whether you talk about Hizbul Ahrar or Jamaat al-Ahrar or TTP for that matter, or Daesh, or even the Indians, the way they are supporting them and using the Afghan soil against Pakistan, number one. Secondly, the problems within the ranks of the Afghan government, that is also going to be something we need to talk about. And then on top, the kind of role the neighboring countries, which I think is of great value, I think that is also going to be very, very important. The role of Pakistan, because whatever happens in Afghanistan, its fallout factor is always visible inside Pakistan. I think Pakistan needs to be really, really, really careful while handling this situation, and we need to keep neutral. That's another very important part. We don't have any favorites, as we have earlier mentioned as well, but I think the role of the Foreign Office is going to be pretty important as well. So that's all we have for this. I'll see you tomorrow, inshallah. Till then, you take good care. Khuda Hafiz.
Islamabad, the capital city, bustles with politicians and business activity. It stretches out around the foothills of the Margalas. To many, Islamabad is just that, lush green views in a modern, urbanized capital that houses politicians, diplomats and the Pakistani elite. But it is while driving through the stucco gate that the line between urbanization and traditionalism blurs us into an eclectic blend of the past and the present. The alleyways that bend through the village hold remnants of a rather colorful, regal history. A tourist site today, the village was once a garden resort known for its natural springs. The historical significance of the city of Islamabad is unknown to many, and for this reason, the Capital Development Authority preserved Saidpur, a Mughal-era village located within the capital city. Through the periods of history that Saidpur has existed, it has been influenced by civilizations such as the Gandhara, Greek, Buddhist, Mughal, Ashoka and British colonialism. Saidpur village is said to be 300 years old, but the elders argue it is even older than most believe it to be. Saidpur's name originates from Sultan Said Khan. He was the son of the Ghakkar chief of the Potohar region during Mughal Emperor Babur's reign, Sultan Sarang Khan. The village was gifted by Sultan Said Khan to his daughter, who married the Mughal Emperor Jahangir, the son of Emperor Akbar.
मैं सन 30 से पैदा हुआ
इस गांव का नाम सैदपुर था। उस पहले जो नाम था वो राजा सैद खान हमारा बड़का था, उसने इलाका फतह किया। उस दिन फतेहपुर बावली नाम था, गुरुद्वारा भी था, मस्जिद भी थी। हम लोगों के साथ एक दूसरे के साथ प्यार करते थे।
Later, the village was recognized as the pilgrimage site by the Hindu commander Raja Man Singh.
Good evening, Assalamu alaikum. You're watching PTV World. I'm Fahim Bangish with the headline news for this hour. Prime Minister Imran Khan directs to prepare a roadmap to steer the country out of gas crisis. Addressing a seminar in Islamabad on natural gas supply, he regretted that no long-term planning was done in the past to cope up with the growing energy needs of the country. Governor Sindh Imran Ismail meets President Arif Alvi in Karachi, discuss the situation in rain-affected areas and the ongoing relief activities. A NAB court in Islamabad indicts former President Zardari and former Prime Minister Gilani in the Tosha Khana reference. Both senior PPP leaders plead not guilty. The court says ex-Prime Minister Nawaz Sharif an absconder in the case. Information Minister Shibli Farrukh says the government has been successful in creating peace and harmony in the society by pursuing dialogue and inclusiveness. Pakistan Army shoots down another Indian spy drone at the Chakoti sector along the line of control. River Indus is in high flood at Kot Mitten, Chachra and Guddu, inundating hundreds of villages in Rajanpur, Rahim Yar Khan and Kacha area of Gandkot and Kashmir. Afghan Vice President Amrullah Saleh escaped bomb attack on his convoy in Kabul that killed 10 people. Pakistan strongly condemns the terror incident. That's all for now. For further details and live streaming, log on to our website world.btv.com.pk. You can find us on our Facebook page with the name of BTV World and follow us on Twitter at WorldBTV. Thank you for joining us.
Islamabad, the capital city, bustles with politicians and business activity. It stretches out around the foothills of the Margalas. To many, Islamabad is just that, lush green views in a modern, urbanized capital that houses politicians, diplomats and the Pakistani elite. But it is while driving through the stucco gate that the line between urbanization and traditionalism blurs us into an eclectic blend of the past and the present. The alleyways that bend through the village hold remnants of a rather colourful, regal history. A tourist site today, the village was once a garden resort known for its natural springs. The historical significance of the city of Islamabad is unknown to many, and for this reason, the Capital Development Authority preserved Saidpur, a Mughal-era village located within the capital city. Through the periods of history that Saidpur has existed, it has been influenced by civilizations such as the Gandhara, Greek, Buddhist, Mughal, Ashoka and British colonialism. Saidpur village is said to be 300 years old, but the elders argue it is even older than most believe it to be. Saidpur's name originates from Sultan Said Khan. He was the son of the Ghakkar chief of the Pothohar region during Mughal Emperor Babur's reign, Sultan Sarang Khan. The village was gifted by Sultan Said Khan to his daughter, who married the Mughal Emperor Jahangir, the son
Hello and welcome to Politics Today. I'm Farrukh Pitafi. Viewers, today we are going to talk about the politics around accountability, which is very important. And since this government has come into power, even before this government, if you remember what was going on with the Panama Papers situation, in that context we have seen that national debate usually surrounds around the matters of accountability. Today was a big day because one accountability court in Tosha Khana case, and I'm going to tell you what that case is. In that case, one former president, Asif Ali Zardari, former Prime Minister Yusuf Reza Gilani were indicted. And then another former Prime Minister, Mia Muhammad Nawaz Sharif, was declared proclaimed offender. And it was also mentioned at that time that if the former Prime Minister who is abroad in self-exile is not going to turn himself in, then his properties will be attached. That means confiscated. This is important when I earlier said Tosha Khana. So Tosha Khana is of a Persian word which means treasure house. Usually whenever you are head of government or head of state, you are offered various gifts by foreign dignitaries. A majority, after a small number of gifts can be taken along by the rulers, but rest have to be submitted to the government's treasure house. And the complaint is that these rulers or ex-rulers actually used all of that wealth for personal use, and they confiscated it. We are going to talk about this. We are going to talk about a lot of other aspects as well, because in Pakistan's politics, nothing is final. We saw Shehbaz Sharif traveling. the same man who was refusing to show up in the parliament despite being the opposition leader in National Assembly, traveling all the way to Karachi just to meet Asif Ali Zardari last week. So what is on cards, what exactly might happen in coming days? Why is it that the government has not been able to bring back Nawaz Sharif to the country? We are going to talk about all these matters. And in order to help us understand these issues, we are joined by Javed Jadoon Saab, who is a senior journalist, renowned analyst, and needs no introduction, are regular on this show. Next to him is Qazi Ahmad Akbar Saab, who has just joined us as spokesman of Punjab government, also representing Pakistan Tehreek-e-Insaf, the ruling party. Thank you very much, sir, for being part of the program. On Skype, we are joined by Rana Ehsan Afzal Khan Saab, who is representing Pakistan Muslim League Nawaz. Thank you very much, Rana sir, for being part of the program. And Barrister Safiullah Ghori, who was to join us in the studio, could not, and joins us on Skype. Thank you very much, Barrister, for being part of the program as well. I have to start with you, Qazi Saab, and I have to ask you that this government has been talking great game about accountability. But it seems that somehow those cases around these politicians, especially high-profile cases, they have not been brought to a closure. Mian Nawaz Sharif is declared proclaimed offender, but you sent him abroad. Asif Ali Zardari, in another case, today he had to be indicted, and that was mega money laundering case. In that he could not be, and it was delayed further till 17th. What exactly is going on? Why is it that your government cannot actually bring accountability matters to a closure?
Thank you very much, Farrukh. First of all, we need to analyze that this is not the ambit of the government to close these cases, but this is basically the responsibility of the prosecution of the NAB, and followed by the our legal recourse system, or the legal law system that we have in this country. So basically, from the day one,
I would have loved to accept that as an answer, but your own 2 years report actually takes credit for accountability, and you have actually talked about
we take credibility of initiating the accountability across the board, and that is what our government believes in, and that's our manifesto, and that was also our election promise. So we stand by it. But prosecution, closing the cases, convicting all these things, they are
bringing Nawaz Sharif back to the country.
And bringing Nawaz Sharif back, whatever the government and the resources that we have, we will do our best to bring him back. The cabinet has already taken a decision on this, and we are clear on the fact that we are not going to extend his bail anymore. And because this was the prerogative given by the court to the Punjab government, that after 8 weeks, if the bail time needs to be extended, it will be done by the Punjab government.
Today
we are not going to do that.
Today a report actually surfaced by certain American doctors telling us that Mian Nawaz Sharif cannot be allowed to travel before his procedure is over. So are you going to, you are saying that you are going to totally disregard that report?
No, we're not going to disregard that. The High Commission in London, they have been given the responsibility for this. The medical reports of the ex-Prime Minister are going to come to the High Commission. They will be studying those reports and then analyzing those reports and issuing the report to the government of Pakistan.
Right.
On which
so there is a possibility that you might extend the bail,
because he went on the pretext of being ill, and so obviously if
our
High Commission also...
Hey, I'm just asking because earlier you said that we are not going to do it, right? I'm going to come back to you.
We never said that we're never going to do that. That's not fair, Farrukh bhai. We never said that.
Right, but let me go to Javed Jadoon Saab. Javed Jadoon Saab, your take at this moment on accountability. It is a matter that doesn't seem to die down at this moment. And for past many years, we have been talking about accountability. How optimistic are you that in coming days we are going to see effective closure of these cases?
Thank you very much, Farrukh. I think I would like to agree to an extent with Qazi Saab that it is primarily the responsibility of the prosecution, as you pointed out in your intro, that cases not being taken to closure and effectively
not being contested in the courts of law. The reason is that when you don't have a very competent prosecution team, this is what happens. Because judges or the courts definitely rely on the proof provided by the prosecution.
Right.
And the way prosecution executes the cases and presents its arguments in the court of law, I think the problem definitely is with the prosecution.
Articulation is a very important fact.
It is.
But then is investigation. You were talking about proof, right? Proof cannot be brought forward by the prosecution without investigation going on. So essentially what you're saying is prosecution is weak and
even investigation is also weak. Why investigation is weak? Because there are farrukh agencies which are conducting investigation like FIA and many other organizations and outfits. Those are involved in finding the proof and taking it to the courts of law, and then I think we can say that because we have seen that the white collar crimes are very complicated and not easy to be conducted, investigations, etc. And when you have a white collar crime, then I think you need a very, very competent team as far as prosecution is concerned, and even as far as the investigations are concerned. We have seen that even in the past, some very high profile cases. Take the example of Panama case. It wasn't taken to the logical conclusion. Ultimately, Mr. Nawaz Sharif was indicted on Akama rather than Panama, because when you don't have a very competent, a very professional prosecution team, I think this is what happens. It has happened in many other countries, and it happens in Pakistan as well.
Hang on. When you are talking about Panama case, you are talking essentially about the JIT that produced a 11-volume report, right? And it was handpicked, the team was handpicked by the Supreme Court of Pakistan at that time. If the best of the country, the khim de la khim, cream of the cream, if that is not good enough, then we should be actually hiring somebody from abroad.
I think nothing wrong in doing that, because corruption.
I hope you understand the political ramifications.
My point is, we all know that.
Experience that in Benazir's murder case also.
Yeah, but everybody opposed it, right?
One point. We all know, almost every segment of the society, every walk of the society knows that there's a rampant corruption in Pakistan at every tier of the society. There's no denying that. If there's a corruption, then if the trails are not being left, if the trail goes cold, I think the problem definitely is with the prosecution and investigation. And one can definitely rely. If you need to cleanse the society, I think there's nothing wrong that one can hire the services or expertise of the foreign investigators as well.
Right. Because Barrister Safiullah Hori is with us, I'm going to later talk about who appoints the prosecution and how the process is done. But first, let me bring in Rana Ehsan Afzal Khan sahab. Let me ask you, former Prime Minister Mian Nawaz Sharif was supposed to come back to the country. There was a pledge made by Shehbaz Sharif, the head of your party. Do we have any timeline as to expect when Mian Nawaz Sharif is going to come? And one thing, the optics versus the reports. In reports, we keep on seeing that he is really ill and he's suffering and he needs some kind of medication and procedure. On the other hand, the pictures that you keep on posting or your party fellows keep on posting show Mian Nawaz Sharif having very good time, actually, going out to party, going out to restaurants. Do reconcile these two contrary perceptions.
Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Thank you, Pitafi Saab, for having me on the show. I'll come to your question, but just a small comment on strengthening the prosecution. You know, we could always ask Farrukh Naseem Saab, Minister Law, to resign.
I live for the day, Rana Saab, when you are going to first answer my question and then going to comment about other things later. But come on. Yeah, go ahead.
You have the law minister, he could resign and just, come and it's done 2 times previously, so he can always do that. And, So now coming to your question, you see, I think now the speculation being done by the government should stop. 2 doctors, Dr. Lawrence, who is a surgeon in Britain, and one Dr. Fayaz Shad, who is who's a director of a hospital in Washington DC Cardiology Hospital. The reports have come, and what are they saying? They've clearly said that in the corona situation, a complete treatment of Nawaz Sharif and, going for a very risky procedure, and the chances of him catching the infection can lead to his death. There is a serious risk. And the other thing is that they have diagnosed that a large part of the patient's heart has been damaged, and disorders of the platelet, aggression, heart and diabetes, kidney disease can lead to blood clots and heart attacks. So one thing is certain, and it is notarized by the Pakistani High Commission, and they have been submitted in the Islamabad High Court.
Right.
Is in a critical scenario. Now, coming to your question about him walking, these doctors have recommended that he should do some brisk walking every day. So I don't think that you have seen any pictures where he was shopping or he was doing anything. He is doing everything as per the bail granted to him by the court, and as per the deal he has signed with the government of Punjab. He is abiding and fulfilling all the requirements. And we have submitted these reports to the Punjab government. Now the issue is...
Yeah, my concern regarding the optics, because we are talking about optics, is that on one side you are telling us that the procedure cannot be carried out because of social distancing owing to coronavirus. On the other side, we don't see him with mask in the public presence, and we have seen him going to various places where he is talking to people, and he is at restaurants. So that doesn't actually qualify. But my question was, when do you expect him to come back after the procedure? Do we have any timeline?
Okay, I can assure you one thing, that once his health checkups and or whatever surgery has to be done and he is healthy, he will not stop or stay in UK for a single day, and he will come back. So that thing I want to assure you.
Yeah, but that doesn't give us any tentative date to actually keep in mind. Let me go now to Barrister Safiullah Wari. Barrister, since we are talking about accountability process, let me ask you, earlier it was highlighted that maybe NAB's prosecution and investigation teams are weak. Who appoints them? What is the process to change that? And is there a possibility of enhancing the capacity of these teams?
Excellent question, Pitafi Saab, and I think this is a question that the Supreme Court took up today. So this is something that's been going on. If you recollect, a little while ago, there was a case going on in which Qazi Faiz mentioned that the prosecutors being appointed by NAB and the investigators being appointed by NAB are wholly unqualified for their positions. And there are tons of stories of extremely poor people who could not have gotten jobs anywhere and having gotten powerful jobs into NAB. And since now that they're in NAB and they're still there, the Supreme Court has been casting a tremendous shadow of doubt as to their capability. And the Supreme Court then, via Justice Gulzar and via Justice Qazi Faiz sent Chairman NAB a notice asking him why they had appointed people who were not qualified for any other government position. People who, for instance, people have been put in legal positions who have backgrounds in engineering. People have been put in investigative positions who have backgrounds, for instance, in computer sciences, or sometimes even very dubious degrees. And so the Supreme Court asked Chairman NAB, and today is a big day on that, by that regard, because Chairman NAB admitted that NAB is in fact extremely poorly equipped to deal with any issues at all. Now, the Chairman NAB, and this is something that the Chief Justice then pointed out, saying that if NAB is poorly equipped, NAB should obviously try and raise the salaries, try and get better people, because NAB is one of those institutions that can get 2 billion rupees off a singular case. So NAB is well equipped to earn as much money as it possibly wants if it has competent people on its behest. But the problem remains that the people in NAB are incompetent, and this is where I have a particular problem with the way the government is taking all of this. Because the government comes with the promise of accountability, yet the government relies wholly and solely on NAB. Now, the process of appointment in NAB is via NTS testing. NAB just advertises its positions. The government has nothing to do with it. NAB selects its own people. However, unfortunately, Farrukh Saab, if you were to, for instance, even look at the position of the prosecutors of NAB are some of the worst lawyers around. And I say that without any exception. And I say this because their salaries are so poor. Most lawyers
Right.
would simply not want
Okay,
to become prosecutors for NAB
since you
just because they wouldn't be earning enough.
I'm glad, Barrister Safiullah Wari, that you are talking about what happened today, and you have actually qualified the question as well. But let me ask you, who actually appoints these people? Is it merely Chairman NAB, or is there a procedure that appoints various people to fill these vacancies? Because right now, if the complaint is that these people are being appointed without merit, then there's something wrong with the entire hiring process.
Absolutely. So this is one of those things. NAB has an SOP, just like any other organization has an SOP.
Okay.
There are various levels that are looked at. Senior positions are appointed, like DG levels are appointed by the chairman himself. Lower level positions of IOs are appointed by the DGs. But the problem is that NAB is not following its own SOPs. And Farrukh Sahab, I want to point out one particularly interesting case. This is the case of Muhammad Nadeem, this fella who came from Bahawalpur, and he was a villager who was been defined by the Supreme Court as being illiterate, a man who all he had was that he owned a buffalo. And this man pretended to be an IO of NAB. He started calling up different bureaucrats all across the country, and this is a case that is currently going on in the Supreme Court of how one man managed to fool senior bureaucracy, senior politicians, senior businessmen, and extracted millions of rupees from them. And so why is this important? This is important because all of those senior people, those bureaucrats, those businessmen, those politicians found nothing odd about a very illiterate man questioning them about their affairs.
Right.
And were happy to give him money whenever he asked for any money. And so this is why this case is
So like the US, the con artist is becoming a tradition in Pakistan as well. You have really pointed out something very important, sir. Let me now come back to the studio. I'm going to come back to you later. Qazi Ahmed Akbar, sir, let us talk about your strategy to fix the accountability process. Because repeatedly your party has said it on record that you want to bring forward laws that will fix NAB and its procedures. But we don't see that kind of progress, although there were talks with the opposition that you are going to do something about that as well. But last moment, all of a sudden, it seems that you had a change of heart. Media kept on reporting that the Prime Minister of Pakistan took notice and said that I'm not going to sign on these dotted lines. The question is, why is it that negotiators negotiate with opposition on these matters without taking him into confidence? If something happens on the last minute, that is what is implied. What is your strategy to fix the accountability process?
Basically, Farrukh bhai, when we came into the power, and after a few months we realized that the whole accountability narrative is being shadowed by the weak investigation and prosecution, and some other facts rightly pointed out by Barrister Saab. The government, and then we also felt that the business community is also fearing NAB, and due to that some business activity is also not gaining momentum in the economy. So we decided that we go for the NAB ordinance, and so we went for that. And those were basically the amendments which the government thought appropriate, given our perspective. And so the NAB ordinance came in, and the opposition started a hue and cry, and they said that it's a ordinance factory, and so on and so forth. So we decided to take the same ordinance, which was an input from the government itself, and we took it into the parliamentary committee where it was to be discussed, and where the input was supposed to be coming from all the political opposition parties. And unfortunately, the opposition parties, which otherwise create a lot of rumpus in the parliament and in the media, but when it came to actually realizing the issue, none of them was taking interest. So unfortunately, the issue stands where it was, unfortunately. And I believe that we, being basically spearheading the accountability narrative, now it's part of our government, it's part of our parliamentarians that we expedite that process, we finalize the whole...
I get what you're saying, and I'm glad that even though I keep on asking about strategy, everybody gives me more history. But regardless of that, my question still stands there. Why? Because the NAB ordinance or the addendum ordinance that you introduced essentially took care of very small nuances. It was not fixing the section 14, which actually declares that you are guilty until proven innocent. It was not fixing the issue of prosecution, how you improve the quality of prosecution. For that matter, how do you improve the investigation capacity as well? And at least the taste was in the pudding, right? The taste of the pudding was in the eating. And you introduced an ordinance which was not fixing the actual problems. It was some complaint that you took care of. Is there a possibility that at least you can bring in a totally, holistic ordinance to fix this problem?
Farrukh, you have answered whatever I was saying yourself, because if all the political parties from their perspective give the inputs, so the things that the loopholes were left by the government, they could be plugged. And we can come up with a very comprehensive legal framework which can help us build up the whole accountability process.
Right.
Now, what the opposition wants? The opposition wanted was that they just wanted to abolish the NAB.
Okay.
At times,
and you don't want to do that, right?
No, I'm
want to
something.
You're holding the opposition. Hang on. You're actually holding the opposition leaders accountable for their alleged corruption. Now you also want them to help you in doing that. That won't happen. So you have to go with something else. Ergo, the ordinance. But in the ordinance, you don't actually add the ingredients that were needed.
No, we don't have to add the ingredients to the ordinance. We have to add those ingredients when we bring in the final act.
And that won't happen.
That did not happen because the opposition parties are not taking it seriously.
So what do you do then?
Yes, exactly. So what I was trying to say that now the opposition parties wanted to abolish NAB altogether. At times, personally, not on the party front, but personally, I feel that it was justified to an extent that by abolishing NAB, we can bring in a new accountability organization,
right,
which can actually improve the investigation and the prosecution side. But then, if we do that, we altogether stop the ongoing accountability process. So we take a step ahead and we take 5 steps backward. So I believe that now only way ahead is that we all need to sit together in the parliament and bring in a very comprehensive legal framework into an act and make sure that it is implemented in letter and spirit.
Now,
and at the same time, we need to reorganize the NAB.
I'm glad that this is your answer, but let me ask you, is it a strategy or a wishful thinking?
Technically speaking, it should be a strategy, but looking at the seriousness in the parliamentary committee, I believe that we have been wasting a lot of time.
So, do you have a plan B?
Plan B is that we start implementing the NAB ordinance itself then.
Right.
And if we do that, then again they are going to create another rumpus in
the ordinance that you brought recently?
Yes.
Okay, but that doesn't answer those concerns that we have raised, right? Your take, sir.
Farrukh, it's a very multifaceted problem, multi-dimensional issue we are talking about.
Right.
When we talk about investigation and prosecution, I think we have many examples which we can quote as a guiding principle. For example, in our neighboring country, we have CBI, Central Bureau of Investigation. We have FBI in America, and in many other countries, we do have a very holistic approach towards stemming corruption.
Right.
In Pakistan, and
with due respect, don't include India's CBI because they arrest everybody who is not corrupt. They won't arrest the corrupt people.
My point is, you need to have an yes. Notwithstanding what they are doing over there,
right.
Here in Pakistan, we have got a problem of many organizations, many outfits working independently.
Right.
There is no integration, there is no sharing of intelligence, there is no sharing of investigative processes. And when we talk about NAB, either NAB should be merged into FIA or FIA should be merged into NAB.
Okay.
Because they are two independent organizations working independently,
right,
without being answerable to each other. For example,
which one is more competent?
I think FIA should be the core organization.
And you just mentioned earlier that the gentleman who was representing FIA or heading actually the JIT in Panama case, who's now heading, FIA, he couldn't actually bring the case to the closure. He didn't have the kind of evidence.
Farrukh, why?
So-
Why? I can answer that. PTI government came into power on the promise of reforming the whole system, including the judicial system, the legal system, the
Right.
administrative system. I think a lot of reforms are needed in Pakistan.
Okay.
When you go for the reforms, then you go for the institutional reforms as well.
Right.
Here you're talking about the head of the organization, which is an individual. But when you start reforming the whole organization, the whole outfit, I think ultimately it will start producing positive results as well.
Okay.
For example, when I say that either one of them should be merged with the other one,
Right.
what will happen? You will have an investigative arm, very effective arm, which
Okay.
can go for scientific investigations into white-collar crimes as well. And you can send them abroad. They must be imparted special trainings as well.
Their forensic capacity can be enhanced
Absolutely,
when
absolutely.
you bring them together. But with due respect, we have seen if a sick unit or underperforming department is merged with a performing department, usually the underperforming culture actually prevails. Inefficiency actually prevails. This is what I've seen. But still, let me actually go back to Rana Sahab. Rana Sahab, there are certain assumptions. For example, Qazi Akbar Sahab is actually saying that your party and the opposition, that includes your party in the opposition, will not cooperate and have not been cooperating regarding NAB amendments. What is your take, sir?
First of all, I think Qazi Saab has wrongly been saying that we were not serious. There was some homework done by both People's Party and PMLN, but sadly, PTI started saying that they want an NRO, and they politicized the whole subject. I mean, NRO was an ordinance, and you don't have NROs through the parliament. Through the parliament, you have amendments. So I think it was PTI which politicized the subject for, and their agendas which they brought, they wanted to reappoint the chairman and the vice chairman for an unlimited time. So they were not serious, and they were using NAB as a tool just to fix the opposition. You mentioned Panama twice. So with Panama, I want to tell you that only Nawaz Sharif was investigated for Panama. There were 437 more people in the Panama case, and none of them were investigated. So, accountability, when we talk about accountability, we should talk about what Justice Bakr said in his report, and various justices when they granted bail in different cases when you talk about NAB. And they have pointed again and again to one thing, and that is that NAB is being used for political engineering. They are just doing accountability on one side of the divide. They've forgotten. So there are many issues with NAB.
Okay,
And obviously,
that's a good answer. But Rana Sahab, are you sure that your party or opposition parties are not demanding an NRO? I ask this because I remember when this parliament started, for months your party and the opposition parties kept on agitating that Shehbaz Sharif should be made head of Public Accounts Committee. And till the time that was not done, the creation of other committees was not helped, and that didn't happen, and legislation didn't start. And within months, one fine morning, Shehbaz Sharif decides that he is not going to be the head of PAC, and the entire situation goes away. It seems that while you accuse the government of monopolizing certain elements of accountability, your party and the opposition parties might be trying to monopolize the legislative business just to get what they want.
I think that's another false claim of the government and PTI. We worked with the government when it came to FATF, and we worked with them, and we did not waste any time. So, and also when you talk about putting pressure for, when we asked Shibli Faraz, what is the evidence that the PTI, that the opposition is asking for NRO, he posted those drafts or those homework being done by People's Party and PMLN, that, this is the evidence. While
what is the evidence? Hang on. Let me remind you that Mariam Nawaz Sharif actually comes on air, talks to media, and she says that if I speak, my father abroad will be brought back or he will be hurt, and I am here as collateral. So that would actually imply that there is some kind of NRO in the process. or there is some kind of expectation?
What you are insinuating means that maybe we have been given.
No, I was not. She was.
So you have to ask that question to the government. Have they given us an NRO?
Yeah,
I don't think they'll agree.
but Mariam Nawaz is not actually in the government right now. I'm going to come back to you, sir. Let me go to Barrister Safiullah Ghori. There is another very interesting thing that we have seen. PMLN has its own narrative, its own style of pleading a case in the courts as well. But we have seen something very interesting or intriguing going on with People's Party, especially when it comes to the case of Barrister Ghori, the case of Asif Ali Zardari, former, very heavy hitters, Farrukh Naik, former governor of Punjab as well. These are the lawyers that represent Asif Ali Zardari. Usually the judge of the accountability court is not a very senior man, and there they go, and every time there's going to be an indictment, for example, like a mega money laundering case today, they managed to wrestle out some more time. Once again, it happened in money laundering case, and there has been postponement of the indictment. Is there a way to work around this matter? Because People's Party made all its lawyers, gave very important posts. Farrukh Naik was chairman Senate for quite some time. There are umpteen others. This will keep on happening.
Right. So, Pitafi Saab, to begin with, I think we have a different perception of what good lawyers or what senior lawyers are compared to what, perhaps the public might. So, if somebody has, for instance, been holding a political position, does not necessarily mean that that person is looked upon as a very senior lawyer amongst the legal community. So,
maybe not by you. Maybe not by you, but if you are at a political position.
I think amongst generally the legal community. Of course, it does help you get more clients, but when it comes to lawyers, they have a slightly different dynamic. Now, I think to say that Asif Ali Zardari has senior lawyers, or compared to Nawaz Sharif's lawyers, that's an incorrect statement, because Wajah Haris is a very well respected lawyer. He has tremendous clout over all the judges, and as a lawyer, he's very, very respected.
No, I get that, but he has never been former president of Pakistan, even caretaker president of Pakistan. If somebody of that capacity actually comes to your court, and you are a junior judge, there is a possibility that you might take pressure. I am not saying that must be the case, but given the situation, you are saying that they might be able to take or manage some time. And here's the problem. Asif Ali Zardari stayed behind bars for somewhere between 9 to 11 years, and they never could actually convict him.
Yeah. So what I want to say here is that we have mentioned that the indictments are coming in slow in Zardari's case. I think the reason is not Zardari's heavy-hitting lawyers. It's actually NAB itself. NAB announced that they want to file 10 more references in the fake accounts case. When you have a situation of this sort where more and more references, supplementary references are constantly coming into a case, a judge is a little averse to indicting. Although, bear in mind that today 2 people were indicted. I think Anwar Majid was indicted and another gentleman.